I'm Jessica Endlich from NextGen Personal Finance, and I'm going to answer true-false questions about personal finance today.
NextGen Personal Finance is a not-for-profit organization focused on bringing personal finance education to high schoolers through free curriculum, teacher professional development, and advocacy support for educators. I've been scouring the interwebs, and there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion around personal finance. So I pulled together some true-false questions to clear up some of these things. Can we get started?
Yeah.
First question, true or false? You are automatically assigned a credit score on your 18th birthday.
That one is false, and actually you can have a credit score before you're 18.
I think that a lot of people assume, for whatever reason, that you start with a low score and that it's your responsibility to try and build that up.
Yeah, it's not like we're all starting at zero and have to like chug along working
Exactly.
it up. There are things that you can do to build your credit. There's certainly things you can do to hurt your credit, but it's not like you need to be on a mission every day once you turn 18. It's no magical number to start like chipping away at it or anything.
And you don't actually have any credit score until you start building one.
Yeah.
Though you do need to be 18 to open a credit card account, there are ways to build credit history before your 18th birthday. Being an authorized user on an existing credit card can be a good option if the primary account holder uses the credit card responsibly. Many banks will allow authorized users as young as 16 to be added to an account. So you specifically work with high schoolers in the personal finance space. What did you feel was missing from this group that kind of prompted you to build NextGen?
High schoolers are making financial decisions. They're buying snacks on their way to school, or they decide, should I buy a yearbook? Should I not? If my parents are willing to give me a little bit of money, what should I spend it on? Or if I have my own part-time job, like, where are my tax dollars going? So there's all of this personal finance already built into their lives. But then unlike something where, you teach elementary school kids to read and to do math and things like that, there was no explicit they're in a financial world. How do we teach them how to do finance?
Right.
And it just felt like such an important skill that not all students were learning or had access to.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And I think that the more empowered they can be when they go off to college or whatever that next step is for them, the better off they're going to be in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly if they think they're going to take student loans out, or if they're going to try to get a car or start investing money or saving for their retirement. There's all these things that as soon as as soon as your financial life gets a little bit more complicated, you're faced with all these decisions, and you want to be equipped to do these things as well as you can.
All right. True or false? Only full-time employees need to file taxes.
Ooh, that's a common misconception. That is false. There's all kinds of reasons that you might need or want to file taxes. So it does not have to be linked to full-time employment.
Yeah, it's more so the dollar amount, and then your age also comes into play when you're thinking about whether or not you have to file taxes. I think that navigating tax law is very confusing for people. What would you say was the most difficult part for you when you were building NextGen?
I think with a lot of financial topics, there's this idea of all of tax law is too complicated. So where should I even start? Why would I even bother? I'm never going to learn all of that. And I think investing is another one that's like that people are like, well, I'm not like an investment banker. How would I ever know how to do that? And so in building NextGen and in thinking what resources we would make for teachers to use in their classroom, we were sort of like, what do you need to know to just engage and to make the most of your own money decisions? And how do we teach that to students in a way that's accessible to them, the way that makes sense to them, and that's as much as possible something that they can use immediately in their lives. So in the case of taxes, you're maybe not talking long-term about tax advantage investment accounts and how you could turn your real estate taxes. We're not going into all that. Right. It's more like, hey, you've got this part-time job and you're getting taxes taken out. Can you get any of that money back? How much should you be paying? What could you do with the refund when you get it? So that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of get them thinking. Even when you're earning this maybe smaller amount as a high schooler, those skills that you're learning now, you can apply for decades down the road as your income grows.
Absolutely. And not to overstate that every single student has a safety net or a support system, because that's just not the reality for every single student. But in many cases, the small dollar amount from your part-time job where you've already got a place to live and food and stuff that's coming from your parents, that's a great time to start thinking about what to do with your finances because it's relatively low stakes versus when you're out on your own in the big wide world and trying to do all of it at once.
When it comes to setting your kids up for future financial success, the earlier you're able to start, the better. The key is to teach the kiddos smart money habits young so that they are prepared to make the most of invested funds in the future. Question number 3. True or false? Consistently paying only the minimum due on your credit card bill can negatively impact your credit scores.
Some nuance to this one. I would say that is true because especially if you got a high balance and you're paying only the minimum every month, your balance is going to stay pretty high. And then that means your utilization is high as well. And that's one of the things that goes into credit score, is how much of your credit you're utilizing at any given time.
Right.
I mean, I guess I would say on the flip side though, like the most important thing is paying all of your bills on time every month. So if in your budget you can only fit the minimum payment, that's certainly better than neglecting it all together or waiting till some other time. So yes.
Exactly. So can you tell me a little bit about how Next Gen works? Is this something only for teachers or can students themselves go and access it?
So we at Next Gen Personal Finance design resources specifically for teachers to use in their classroom with their middle school and high school age students.
You were a teacher, so you know.
Yes,
you know what's going to help. What's going to help in a classroom.
To be honest, I wish I had been a personal finance educator. I was a math teacher. I was an assistant principal. I was a principal, and so I have that classroom lens, that school building lens to it as well. But I just think personal finance would be like the most fun topic to teach, honestly. Like most teenagers are so interested in learning about money. They have so many good questions. They already have some lived life experience that they can rely on, but then they're always just aspirationally looking forward to the future too. So.
All right. Question 4, true or false? If you earn over $150,000 annually, you don't need a monthly budget.
Oh, wow. What a magic number, 150,000. I think there's a lot of people who would love to make $150,000 a year. But no, I mean, a budget is important for everybody. Some people think like budgets are so rigid and it's just not my personality to follow that. But there's so many different ways and styles that you can do a budget, and you can do one on a much smaller income. You can do one on a much larger income and still benefit from it. So yeah, there's no magic above and beyond line of that you don't need to budget anymore.
It's always helpful to know what money is coming in and what's going out.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. For sure. And make sure that you're using it in a way that's going to make you feel happy and satisfied and let you live the life that you want to live.
Yeah, definitely. True or false? You can often open a high yield savings account for no monthly fees.
Yes, I would say that one's true, that you should be able to find a place to give you a savings account without a lot of fees.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously you have to check the fine print and make sure you know what you're signing up for. Make sure you don't have to keep a certain balance, but.
Yeah, absolutely. The balance is one. Sometimes you need to link it to a checking account in order to get the free savings account. There's all kinds of things, and you want to make sure and that's another good reason to really understand what all these like terms and buzzwords and stuff mean, so that when you see an offer like that at your local bank branch or at an online bank, which is kind of really popular with younger people, you know, what does that even mean? And is this a good deal? And how do I assess that? So
exactly. Question 6, true or false? If you have debt, you should focus on paying that off before building a savings account.
No, I would say that's false, especially if you graduate with like a lot of student loan debt or you kind of make a mistake and overcharge a credit card. You still want to be saving money for yourself and making sure that you have a little bit of a cushion, because otherwise it becomes this like cyclical thing.
Exactly.
Where
like in further debt.
Yeah, exactly. Where if you don't have any savings, then every time you need an emergency sort of thing, then you're charging that as well and you're building up the debt. So you want to be trying to do both at the same time, which I know sometimes feels like impossible, but
exactly. Tackling debt payments requires a hands-on approach. Whether you choose the debt snowball approach and pay down your smallest debts first, or an avalanche strategy where you tackle the highest interest rate first, knowing your finances can help choose a pay down plan that works for you. So you mentioned earlier that your students have a lot of questions. I'm kind of curious, what's one of the common questions that your students have?
Okay, so this might be surprising, but students are often confused about the difference between a debit card and a credit card.
Oh, that's a big one.
Because they look fairly identical, and sometimes you get asked like, "Oh, debit or credit,"
Right.
and that sort of implies that they're interchangeable and that they're the same thing.
Right.
So that was the number one thing that surprised me and is really important because they're very different cards.
Right. Final question.
All right.
Ready?
All right. Yes.
True or false? You shouldn't start planning for retirement until after your 40th birthday.
Oh, that one's false. You want that really long, nice timeline so that you can benefit from the compounding that can happen. You want to be in the market for like a really long time if you're investing, so that you can ride the ebbs and the flows of the market. The closer and closer you wait until retirement, the closer you are to like needing these things to work out really well
Right.
to have the retirement you want.
You have to use bigger number amounts to get there.
Yeah, bigger number amounts, and then you're sort of like already set in whatever budgeting ways that you had before, and changing that can feel really hard. So yeah, you definitely want to start when you're young.
By saving in a retirement account that pays compound interest, the return gets added to the original principal at the end of every compounding period. Each time interest is calculated and added to the account, it results in a larger balance. The longer you save, the more the interest will compound and grow.
So I know your curriculum is primarily geared towards students. Are there any tips that you give to parents to kind of help reinforce these concepts at home?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I myself have 3 kids, but they're smaller. But I think the number one piece of advice for parents is just like, be willing to have money conversations with your kids, regardless of how old they are. And I think, sometimes as parents, we try to protect our kids from
Right.
everything. We don't want them to know. But having those conversations and normalizing talking about money
Definitely.
helps them have more frank and honest conversations with their friends. Like, maybe all my friends in high school are doing something that I'm like, that's a lot of money. And if I'm used to talking about money, I might feel more comfortable saying like, hey, actually, like that doesn't fit in my budget, or my part-time job doesn't cover that kind of thing. Could we try something else? It helps down the road with future partners and things like that. So I think my number one piece of advice would just be to feel okay talking about money and to normalize that with your kids.
Now, if people are feeling inspired about Next Gen, they want to look at the curriculum themselves, how can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. We are at ngpf.org. Everything on our website is completely free for anybody to use, and they can check out lots of great resources, whether they're in a classroom or just trying to learn on their own.
Thanks for joining us on Control Finance. What do you think of this week's episode? If you'd like to see us interview more founders, leave us a little comment below or give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you next time. Bye.